Hey guys, Stitches here. If you're seeing this is likely coming out on the Monday the 6th, I believe. First off, I want to apologize for just not uploading in the last week. I had some craziness with personal stuff happen. There was a heat wave where I live that lasted for a whole 3 days, and I don't want to like martyr or anything, but it made it very hard for me to focus on videos. I don't do well in high heat due to being largely overweight. And it's something I'm trying to fix about myself, but it takes time and effort. But basically I haven't been able to like work on videos just because by the time I get off work, I'm so like exhausted that I just kind of come downstairs and I rest. And with stuff with the move and everything that I've been working on, I just haven't had time to like upload videos. I haven't even touched video recording or editing literally until making this video on Friday the 3rd. So this video is supposed to come out in like 3 days from now. But anyways, the reason we're actually here is because of an announcement PlayStation made, which is I'm about to put up on the screen right now, which is this post that PlayStation made. This is accompanied by another post that I'll talk about as well. I'll have to switch it over though. But I wanted to talk mainly about this. This came out 2 days ago on July 1st. And this comes after this comes after PlayStation kind of being not so great with their decisions in the past, but I really wanted to talk about this because this is something that's like really, really personal to me. Apparently I don't have, do I have capture cursor on? I do. It's just hard to see the cursor, I guess, on my screen. But physical disc production ending in January 2028 for new games releasing on PlayStation consoles. PlayStation is officially giving us an end of life for physical media on the PlayStation system. And what's notoriously funny is PlayStation previously made a skit to make fun of Xbox in a previous years about sharing physical media on PlayStation by just saying, here's how you share here's how you share a PlayStation game with your friend. And they like hand over a physical disc or at least like a game case to the other guy. And I'm just like, this feels so horrible. And I'm gonna get into like why I don't like this a lot, but I wanted to talk a little bit about it first. I kind of want to look at this from the perspective of how like digital games are pro-consumer to a degree, but how this is also very anti-consumer. Just to kind of round our bases, round our corners so we get a full understanding. So first of all, I kind of want to talk about like what it was like when digital games were getting introduced. Digital game storefronts were a thing that like I grew up with. Um, like as I was growing up, Xbox Live Arcade and stuff like that, those started to be implemented. And the idea behind digital games originally was that they were supposed to be very pro-consumer. They were supposed to allow you to not have to deal with discs if you didn't want them. They were supposed to make it so like if you weren't as like if you weren't specifically set on getting the disc, you could just get the game have it installed. And initially, like, the idea of digitally installed games was like very pro consumer, because the idea was like it took discs out of the equation. So it was like, as long as you had your console, you could just boot up the game. And there was even like a thing where they started implementing like installing games to the hard drive of your console, to make them like run faster and boot up. So the idea of digital media kind of originally was to be pro consumer, making games more available to people who like couldn't necessarily get to game stores, or like maybe like game stores were getting scalped, even though scalping wasn't really a problem at the time, I don't think. You know, it was made it so like the physical copy wasn't the only option. It was giving consumer choices. And I like digital media being available. I think it's a very important thing. There are a lot of games that release every day that don't have physical copies, and removing those physical costs, like as a necessity for making games, is a very pro indie move. But I don't want you to think that I am at all for this move of just discontinuing all physical media. I still buy physical media. I bought Pokemon Legends ZA on physical media. And like there are a lot of games I do buy digitally. Like I didn't buy Tomodachi Life physically because I didn't think it was necessary. There are a lot of games on my Switch that I don't buy physically just because it's like I don't want to carry the cartridges around or whatever. Or like I don't think it's worth it to get the game physically. Largely when I get a game physically, it's because I want something out of the game, like being able to proudly display, yeah, I own Pokemon Legends ZA, or yeah, I own Pokemon um Sword and Shield. I actually don't own Pokemon Violet physically, which is kind of sad. I thought about changing that at some point and getting a secondhand copy now that we're moving into Generation 10, but who knows. But I did want to kind of scroll through this article here in a minute as well. So, in case you're wondering why I'm just on a static screen, you kind of know why now. But this is very bad as well because PlayStation also recently did a move where I believe it was like 5,000 or something movie, or not 5,000, 500 or something movies were removed from the digital storefront of PlayStation, and they were just removed from people's libraries. Like they can't re-download them due to licensing agreements. Which one, I don't understand how, because I thought the like common practice for things like this was if a licensing agreement problem comes up, the game or media just becomes delisted. But in order to maintain ownership, you have to physically provide a download. I thought this was a legal precedent, and it might be, and they're just like not doing it and like trying to see if anybody will come after them. Unfortunately, that's kind of the world we live in now, where a lot of companies will just do blatantly illegal shit and see if anyone calls them out on it. And then, like, nobody does because, like, class action lawsuits aren't allowed or anything. So you have to challenge them on a case by case thing. If you don't know what a class action lawsuit is, basically it's a lawsuit that's done on the behalf of, like, everybody affected by a problem. So then, like, you can opt to be in the class action lawsuit, which, like, gets your side more leverage, or is supposed to at least. So, you know, it is one of those things where it's like, I personally am of the opinion that like a lot of game companies do underhanded, shisty ass shit like this, where they want to just see what they can get away with, and if they get away with it, it benefits them. But if they get called out, they're like, "Ah, I guess you caught me anyway." Moving on. You know, I don't think that these companies face harsh enough penalties for doing illegal shit. But that's just assuming any of this is illegal. There's been a huge motion as well from people saying, like for a while, saying if buying isn't owning, then piracy isn't stealing, which is generally a sentiment I do agree with. I've never been like super against piracy in general. Some people just can't afford digital media, and I think that piracy largely is more of an issue of the company not providing to the consumer. I generally believe in consumer good faith in the sense that I believe that largely people are willing to buy something versus steal it. Because I know a lot of people who they pirate a game just because they're either not sure the game was actually like worth buying at the time, or they either like buy the game after pirating it, or like they feel bad about pirating the game so they end up buying it. But like largely I see a lot of cases where people will pirate a game, they enjoy it, and then they buy it, or they pirate a game because they're not sure if their computer can actually handle it, so they want to like give a test run to see how it runs. And I think like largely if a game is available for purchase, people are going to purchase it. And I think Nintendo is a good example of this with the Pokemon games that re-released that I talked about in a different video. You're more than welcome to go watch that one, by the way. I don't know if there'll be an info card for it or not. But I feel like people are just more likely to buy something than it is to like pirate it. Now, of course, this depends on how easy it is and like how long it's been the way it is. But the piracy, the whole like thing of like pirating to get back at the establishment is something that I think is like a decently good protest. Do remember though that piracy is like a federally punishable offense. Now, generally, I think you have to like they need a lot of dirt on you to actually get it, but mainly they don't go after like a lot of small people. It's mainly like they'll go after big people they know are pirating, which is why like it's a lot more risky if you're getting into YouTube to be playing like pirated copies of games, or like, there's also kind of like a time frame for it, because like even if you're like charged for piracy, they kind of like need to prove you have the pirated copy of the thing still. So like a lot of people, when they pirate a game, they don't keep it around forever on their hard drive. It eventually gets deleted. But the idea that PlayStation, like with those movies though, could just like revoke your access to a piece of content entirely without compensating you financially. People are also saying like if they can just do that at any time, you should be able to request a refund at any time then. Which like I don't even know if I fully agree with that concept, because that would lead to a lot of people just never buying anything anyway. But yeah, you can see there's like 902 likes, but there are 7,000 comments on this. So we're going to kind of read through this now. In response to shifting trends in consumer preference, new games will be released on PlayStation Store and at retailers in digital formats only. Now, this doesn't mean that you won't be able to go to a store and buy a PlayStation game. It just means that everything are going to be on those like scratch off cards. But continuing on, as consumer preferences and the broader entertainment industry continue to shift away from physical discs to digital, physical game disc production for all new games on PlayStation consoles will be discontinued starting January 28th. Following this date, new games will be available on PlayStation Store and retailers in digital formats only. This transition has no impact on games that already released or will be releasing prior to January 28th in disc format. This is a natural direction for Sony Interactive Entertainment to adapt to consumer trends as the general preference for digital media significantly outpaces physical discs. This transition will enable us to align more closely with how most of our community prefers to access and play games today. We will continue to prioritize our resources to drive innovation in how players can access games and provide choices as to where players prefer to purchase new games, whether that's at retailers or PlayStation Store. We remain committed to delivering world-class gaming experience to our fans, and we thank you for your continued support. And then they also have another thing where they announced important PlayStation Store or announcements for PS3 and PS Vita starting today. So we'll get that. Join the conversation, but don't be a jerk. Fuck you, PlayStation. You know what you're doing. Yeah. So they're saying this isn't going to affect physical games that are already released, but it arguably will. With the lack of printing physical discs for games, they won't need to put a disc drive on future PlayStation consoles, which means backwards compatibility is going to go down. Personally, I have wondered why a lot of companies don't just release the disc portion as like a $20 add-on for a game system, because like largely you just need to make like a USB Blu-ray player. I think it's something about how like integrated systems work a lot better. But I don't really know about any of that on a technical level. I just think it would be neater if more companies did like, oh, the console comes digital, but you can upgrade to a physical edition by just getting an add-on. Unfortunately, PlayStation actually did do this, and they did it in the worst way possible by making the add-on like ridiculously expensive and need to like actually, it's like super expensive because it integrates physically to the system. So they did that with the PS5 Pro, which I actually have no plans to get a PS5 Pro. I honestly don't even know if I want to buy another PS5 now, just knowing this. Now, I don't know if it like any of the pushback from the public is actually going to do justice to this. I'm hoping that it will. So if you have something to say about this, please say it. Like, this is one of those things where even just talking about this is important, and that's what I'm doing right now. I couldn't stay silent about this, even if this video is like cringe or bad. Like, this is something that deeply affects me because as a kid, like, one thing I've mentioned before is I didn't exactly have all the money in the world going around as a kid. Just spend on video games. Like, a lot of times I wouldn't get video games until like my birthday or Christmas or, holidays, it was very rare that I would receive a video game outside then. So I'd have like 3 video games to play for like an entire year, with the exception of like some cheap games I could get my hands on, like the Virtual Console, which the Virtual Console is a digital format, but it's still relevant to the conversation, especially into a conversation piece we're going to be getting into with the second article that PlayStation released. I'm just waiting to save it because it's something that kind of encompasses both of these. But another thing about physical media that I think is important is the discussion of game prices. There are a lot of people who genuinely can't afford to buy a game full price. And, this leads to a lot of people who like actually just rent games. And that's like one thing I like about games now that's honestly better for video game renting is your save data isn't stored on the game cartridge. Ever since like the introduction of the console memory card with funnily enough, PlayStation, um like you could rent a game, beat it, and still have your save file. So if you ever obtained another copy of that game, your memory card would still like read. Your memory card would still like read that and everything. So you'd basically had never gotten rid of your data regarding that game. Honestly, what I think is also interesting about this, talking about the renting perspective, is that Gamefly actually made a comment about this as well. If you don't know what Gamefly is a service where it's a subscription service where you pay a certain amount and you can like rent up to a specific number of games, have them shipped to your house, and you can play them as much as you want while you have them, and then eventually you send them back, and then you can like send a new one or get a new one sent. And they've like made a new thing where it's like if you're in good standing with them, they like optimize it even further where it's like, oh, if you mark a game as sent back, you can already get a new one shipped to you like the next day, so that way you don't have to go days without a new game being played. And I know like Gamefly has been instrumental in a lot of people actually being able to cover games. I know a few content creators who have admitted they just rent games for playing them. And it's one of those things where I've even debated doing it. I remember there have been times where I've tried to get employed at game stores because they have like free employee rentals where it's like an employee can rent one video game at a time for free. And I thought about doing that just so that way I can get access to a lot of games that I normally wouldn't have access to for the channel. Of course, I never did get employed at those video game stores because the one specific store I was trying to get employed at has like a very weird process. They have like an apply online option, but when I went in store, they basically admitted they never actually check that, which I'm like, cool. But then they could never tell me if they were actually looking for employees, which like was one of those things where like I don't think they were ever like publicly looking for employees, but they would always give you a a job application anyway, and I'm like, I'm not going to fill this out if I don't know that you're looking for employees. There's no reason for me to. But anyway, I digress. That's kind of a tangentially related thing. But video game rentals are like another thing why I think physical discs are important to games. Hell, like I wouldn't even mind if discs got phased out because cartridges generally are a lot better. Like Nintendo's Switch 2 cartridges can hold so much data on them because they're a solid state piece of media. I would be even fine with that But I've seen even a lot of indie developers pushing back against this in a way similar to that, where like they don't make cartridges, but they make like drives that are just big enough for their game to fit on. And I think that's really interesting of like a concept of like, oh, you can buy like an official USB drive from us and it comes with a copy of the game on it. And like other than the game being on it, like it's still a physical piece of media. Um like Gabe Newell also, like I already treaded on this, but Gabe Newell has a notorious quote of saying, um what is it? Piracy is a producer issue or something. Or piracy is a service issue. Gabe Newell piracy quote. Piracy is almost always a service problem and not a pricing problem. And I generally think this is true because I think a lot of people would just like wouldn't pirate a lot of games if they were available. And that kind of leads me into the next thing, which I'm actually going to turn off the window view for a minute so I can get over to that tab. Oh, that was weird. And that is this other thing here, which is an update on the PlayStation Store and PS3 for PS Vita. Changes start this year in select markets, followed by global changes in 2027. After nearly 2 decades of supporting the PS3 console generation, we wanted to let you know we will be closing the PlayStation Store on PS3 and PS Vita. PlayStation Store on PS3 will close in select markets starting this year, followed by global closures for PS3 and PS Vita next year. That means new content purchases will no longer be possible once the PlayStation Store closes on these devices. To ease the transition, players will still be able to download previously purchased content after the closing date for the foreseeable future. As the PlayStation Store continues to evolve to support modern commerce systems, including updated payment processing standards, PS3 and PS Vita are no longer able to support these updates at the level required. As a result, we will need to close the PlayStation Store on these devices in the timeframes as follows. Mexico, Honduras, and Nicaragua will have closures starting on August 2026, literally next month. Additional Latin American and Middle Eastern countries will have the closure happen starting in late 2026. And at some point in 2027, in all other countries, the closures will begin to take place around July of next year. We know this news may be disappointing to PS3 and PS Vita players who hold a special place in their hearts for this generation of gaming. PS3 and PS Vita represent an important era in our PlayStation history, so this was not an easy decision for us to make. As we continue to expand the PlayStation experience on newer devices that most of our users are playing on today, we need to focus more resources on delivering the best gaming experience on these platforms as we look ahead toward the future. To our amazing players, we want to give our heartfelt thanks for your ongoing passion and support, which has helped inspire us to shape PlayStation into what it is today. We are excited for the future ahead as we continue to push the boundaries of play. We look forward to having you on this journey with us as we explore new game worlds and new adventures that have yet to come. And then they have a link to the other article that came out at the same time, just like how the other article linked to this one. First of all, I just want to talk about how much of a dickbag move it is to announce both of these. Because not only are they like, oh, well, our our consumers prefer digital, so let's reduce the amount of digital options they have. There are so many games that I feel like are just going to be like lost media in an official capacity because of this. Like, they'll still be available by like archives and stuff where you could like pirate the game from. But like, one of the only ways you can still reliably buy Persona 3 Fest to this day is on the PS3 storefront. And like, as much as people give the Vita shit, the Vita does have games that are like worth getting. There are a lot of Vita games that I feel like, you know, didn't really get a chance just because the Vita flopped as a console, but they're like perfectly fine games. I've only ever played a PS Vita like one time in my life. And I borrowed it from a dude who I swear to God constantly scratched his fucking nutsack. So he like that PlayStation Vita experience was like something where I didn't really get super far into it because of that. But the idea that at the same time as announcing discontinuing physical media, they're also announcing a way, like a means of discontinuing a lot of digital media and not making it available, this like hurts a lot. Like, the amount that this hurts is crazy to me. And it's just crazy to me because, like, what even is this explanation? Like, I don't know. They don't cite anything specific, but they're just like payment processing standards. Like, can we not just have a system where you add funds to your PlayStation account from a card and then, like, buy the thing? Like, I'd understand if you were saying, like, we have a problem with processing certain cards. And like, I know they're not really doing updates to like the actual PS3 anymore. But honestly, like, just make it so I can put a balance on my account and then purchase games. Like, that's what the 3DS store did to prevent people from accidentally putting funds on their 3DS and just not having them accessible. Was like they removed the ability to add funds to the 3DS like a while before the eShop's closure. And then what they did instead was made it so you can add funds to your Nintendo Network account, like to your Nintendo eShop profile, and they're cross spendable on like both systems. And I honestly wonder why PlayStation wouldn't just do that. That seems like the easiest way for doing this. And this arguably just seems like a way for cost cutting to a measure that doesn't seem necessary to me. Companies are always so for the profit and so for growth. I think they don't like to stagnate in terms of growth. Generally, I don't think companies should do stuff like this unless they're actually in the red. But I think so many companies are afraid of like falling behind the comp that they're just like, oh, we're going to do some stupid bullshit like this. Now, I understand that, like, you know, in a lot of ways, like, you will eventually have to discontinue support of these systems. One of the issues I would understand is, like, if they're changing the infrastructure of PlayStation storefront so that way it's like, oh, the PS3 would not be able to connect to it without a new system update. And since we don't do system updates on the system, that's how that works. That would be something I feel like is more understandable, and people would still be upset about that. But it's just one of those things where I'm just like, I'm not really sure how to really feel about that, especially because I didn't have a PS3, so like I'm not as connected to the PS3 storefront. But like it still sucks. And another thing I do want to talk about is it's talking about how consumers prefer to like use games digitally. And I wonder if that in large part is due to PlayStation Plus, which is actually getting an advertisement over here. PlayStation Plus, I feel like these subscription services really skew the data for like, oh, a lot of people are choosing to play physical. And it's like, yeah, because you're offering like, or a lot of people are choosing to play digital instead of physical. It's like, yeah, you're offering these games basically for free under a subscription service. Like, what do you mean? Excuse me, I had to yawn for a minute. It is pretty early in the morning. It's like 5:22 right now. But this just it doesn't put a good taste in my mouth, and it scares me for where the video game industry might go, because physical media I feel like is a big part of the video game industry, and I feel like eventually we're just kind of heading towards a point where it's like, companies phase out like physical media, and then they phase out physical hardware, and then it's like, oh, so gaming is only done through the computer now. And then they're gonna like try to price gouge the computer because the computer like already is kind of an inaccessible platform right now due to all these AI data centers and shit taking up a lot of the resources necessary to make that an accessible market for the consumer. I just like I don't plan on ever buying a PlayStation console new after this, which kind of sucks because, just with this console generation, like with the console generation of like Nintendo Switch or like Switch 2, PS5, and Xbox Series X, like I was able to get all of them when they released. Like I got both of the PlayStation and Xbox, PS5 and Xbox Series X when they dropped, like the year they dropped in my household. And then, I bought a Switch 2 just last year, which I do also want to do a video kind of talking about Switch year 1 and my Switch 2 year 1 and my opinion about it. So, I'll probably record that after this actually. But anyways, that's really all I have to say on this. I just wanted to give my viewers like my opinions on it, as well as kind of like break the news if you're not really into the news sector of gaming. I know a lot of people who actually watch my stuff who like specifically get info from me. They're like, wow, I didn't know about this because I don't, I'm not like on social media like that. And I think like, I found out about this because of Twitter, or X rather. So I think that I think that providing my viewers with like news to a degree is like kind of a responsibility. I don't know. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about like all the news of the world. I'm not going to be talking about like whatever fuck ass shit the US president's on at the time. If I talked about that, like honestly, that would be the worst YouTube channel experience. But yeah, so that's really it all I have to say. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to hit the like button. You should also subscribe, hit the bell icon to get notifications. You should leave a comment to give me some more in detail feedback, or just talk about your opinions on this. You should also look at the links in the description. There's links to my Blue Sky, Twitter, and Twitch pages. There's also a link to my Ko-Fi page, which has some exclusive content and occasionally gets you access to early content. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video.